So, estate agency of the future. What does the future of UK estate agency look like? Jason, thank you for joining me here. And we're going to engage in a set of conversations around the estate agency business that we both know and love and are heavily involved in. And I suppose before we kick off, what's your backstory, Jason? Like, tell us, where did you start? Where have you been? Where have you come from?
I actually started in the last century, which actually makes me feel ancient. So go back to 1985. I had an absolute long blonde mane of hair. And I had nothing really apart from ambition, a little bit of self-confidence, probably misplaced. I started out as an office junior.
Yep.
So typically that was a time of photocopying, sticking photos on stuff. I just loved it. It was a really, really kind of exciting, fast-paced, new environment. And from there, I sort of like rapidly went through the ranks, became a branch manager at 19. And I was absolutely awful at it. I'd have probably sacked me multiple times.
No skills to do that job.
No, but I guess it was one of those things that I had ambition.
Yeah.
And it was probably at a time that actually the more ambitious you were, the braver you were, the higher the rewards. And I guess probably I did that in East London. And then sort of like probably mid-20s, moved to Essex.
Okay.
I think I finally grew up a little bit. And I think that's when I started to become a proper leader of a business and people. From there, I progressed through area manager, regional manager, managing director, chief operating officer. And that takes me up to today, and where I joined IAD.
And what do you do now at IAD?
So I'm the head of coaching and training. And that's something that I've had a long held belief that actually the industry lets the people down in it. That actually there's just not enough high quality training, focus on developing the skills that lots of people have got within, but just helping them really drag it out and become very good at it.
Brilliant. And I suppose with your background in that sort of corporate world and a bit of independence as well, do you feel that the training side of it was stronger in one than the other in terms of what was given to
I
the
do. I
agents?
think people give the corporates a bit of a bashing, but I think if I go back to certain stages in my life, actually I've got a lot to thank corporates for in terms of generic management skills. And you wouldn't necessarily say I adopt all of those, but what it does, it gives you a foundation to work from and adapt to suit your personality. So I think for me, the corporates were a little bit better at that. But sometimes what that does is it actually stifles people, that you are so rigid that actually the sort of fluidity that you need to get deals done, to get the best out of people, sometimes can go missing.
Yeah, I suppose, and I felt a bit of that myself in my journey. So I started really similarly to you. I was probably 17 in a part-time role in a local independent. And then as I was leaving sixth form, I was ready to get into work. And I don't think they were quite ready to have me, whether they didn't have the space or whatever. It was sort of promising that there was something, but it never quite came through. So I went on the hunt, really. I was looking for a job, and I decided at that point that I was going to be an estate agent.
Why estate agency? What was it that appealed?
I suppose there was a lot of drive at school around like going into further academics. Really, it was going to university. Which university are you going? Are you filled out your UCAS? Are you going on the tours and the visits? And for some reason, it just didn't click. There was nothing that I really wanted to go and do in that space. And somebody, it was a family friend, had said to me, "Is like my brother-in-law runs this estate agency. What? I'll get you a job there." And for me, that was brilliant. That was a step up from the garden centre I was working at part-time. So
I'm thinking suit, shirt, tie, all of that kind of stuff.
Tie. I was like, wow, this is a proper job. So I went and did that part-time, and moving at the end of my sixth form career into a full-time role, I like I say, I had to go hunting and got my CV and went up the high street and into all of the agents. And one of the guys said, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll get you an interview. I like you." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And I thought, right, that's it. I've done it. And then I had deadpan silence for weeks. And I thought, so I phoned him. "Yeah, don't worry, I'll get it. Leave it with me. 3, 4, 5 days went. I thought, haven't heard from him. I phoned him again. I must have phoned this guy 8 times before he got me the appointment with his area manager.
Because I guess actually I was a branch manager, area manager around about that time. And I always used to say to someone, elder branch managers, if someone's brave enough to walk in with a CV, you interview them. Because actually what that says to me is they've got character, they've got a little bit of no fear mentality, And that is so much about what this industry is
Oh yeah,
about.
I prospected this fella without even knowing what I was doing. I was chasing him. I was following him up to try and get him to do what he said he was going to do for me.
Yeah, and you just think, actually, this guy's got all the ingredients that you need to be a good agent.
Maybe it was a complete ruse that I just wasn't aware of at the time. But that was corporate life. So yeah, I went into William H. Brown, part of Connells, and yeah, had that great start to life in training. So the first 5 days were spent away at Tring, and we went through all of the basics of estate agency. And that's something I think, yeah, like you say, corporates don't quite get the celebration that I think they need to give. I think
they've played an important role. If you look at lots of the successful estate agents in the UK today, a huge amount of them perhaps haven't spent all of their career there, but they've had a starting point, and they've learned the fundamentals, and it's right, okay, I understand the basics, now I'm going to go and dance to my own tune.
And then I think I probably experienced the stifling as well that you talk about. So in our in the business that we were in, we certainly had limitations about where we were going to go, because the guy that got me the job, he'd been there for 10 years, 12 years, and the guy above him had been there for 20 years, and there was no growth.
It's dead man's shoes, isn't it?
We were sort of waiting, you know, and myself and David, who became my business partner, was in the same room. We were both in the office, and we were both looking up and into nothing really. So and it was our secretary at the time that said, well, you boys should go and start on your own. We'd only been in there. I'd only been there 2 years.
What sort of age were you at the time, mate?
I was 20.
Yeah, that's ballsy.
Yeah, I think it was. And maybe a bit naivety played into that. It took my favour. I think we both looked at it to say, look, we've got the energy, the enthusiasm, and we know how to sell houses. We no admission of knowing how to run a business, but we knew how to sell houses and do the job that we were employed to do. And I think we also felt that we both had quite low X's at the time as well, so we didn't have huge expenses. So actually, almost a what have we got to lose moment of, look, we're going to back ourselves.
Thing, and actually, you've got not a lot to lose. And actually, that naivety in some ways actually plays to your strengths, because there's not that fear of what could happen. It's just, let's go for it.
But I have seen a picture of the pair of us from within the first 6 months, and I don't know how anybody trusted these two lads with their houses, but they did, you know, and maybe they brought into that enthusiasm and that confidence that we got from the tough beginning that we had in the agency world that we were in, which was really competitive, but it was great, you know. It was a great learning environment, and we took that into our business, and myself and partner David, we built that business over 19 years. So we've gone from that independent corporate and to own ownership really for nearly 20 years.
So here's a question for you: the baby that you built, you and Dave, ultimately you sold it to IAD.
We did.
So talk to me about the range of emotions that must have created.
Yeah, I suppose a crazy range of emotions. They were just, honestly, everything from complete elation to complete denial and disappointment and frustration and everything in between. But I think in our vision of where we were taking it and what we were doing, we had fully committed to building a self-employed model of business. That was where we thought the future of estate agency is going, and that is what we still fully believe in as a model for great agents. And IAD had also seen this. They'd seen it before we had, so they actually developed and built their business from 2008, and ours was only launched in 2020 in this self-employed model. But when we started having conversations with these people and the senior people involved in the business, we were talking about our future ideas and how we wanted to develop the business. And the beauty is, this is 15 years deep, and they've already done most of the stuff that we were looking to do. They had this real enthusiasm about the model, this total belief in self-employed model to power entrepreneurs, from estate agency experienced entrepreneurs to people that are career changing into the business and starting their business with IAD. And we just saw this as, this is a complete opportunity for us to be able to board a bit of a rocket ship and be the leader within that rocket ship for the UK business. They've totally admitted from the beginning that 70% of the model is the same the world over, but 30% of that model is localized and specialized to the market that it's in. And both David and I thought, actually, these guys coming into the UK, we could either be part of this and take a leading shaping role in building this to the business that we want to be part of and become a real leader in the UK, or they could be our biggest competitor in 6 months' time. And we thought, actually, we want to be part of this journey.
It's an interesting one, that, and actually, when there's opportunities presenting, some people grab it, grasp it. Other people sit there in a little bit of, oh, I wonder, what if, a little bit of denial about change.
Yeah.
So which camp were you in? It sounds as though you were very much the positive embracers of change.
Yeah, I think I'm quite open to pushing forward to make a change, but there was definitely seeds of doubt at times, and there was one of the biggest moments I think for us was actually releasing our brand that we had adored and built for 19 years. It was outrageous when we started it. It was still outrageous 19 years later. So it was a brilliant, beautiful pink and black brand that we had lived by, and our team bled pink and black, and it was brilliant. But actually, for the greater benefit of what I think we can now produce and go forward, that was one of the things that we had to let go. But
I remember
it was hard.
your pink and black branding. Now, bear in mind, I used to live not a million miles away from Elsenham.
Yeah.
So obviously, sort of saw one of your offices, and it was like pink and black in a state agency.
Yeah,
and it was colour that wasn't really predominant, not seen elsewhere. So yeah, definitely broke the mould.
Yeah, it was, and I think that was part of our plan really from when we started. We wanted to be different. We wanted to shock the market, and we wanted to behave in a slightly unusual way, or maybe unorthodox way. And I feel that we did that throughout our whole career.
There's a theme here: shock, shake up the market, do something differently, and that's certainly an IAD trait as well.
Yeah, and that's what we're doing. You know, that we have experienced up to now, probably phase one of self-employed agency. I think there has been some amazing work done by. We were part of it, but there were bigger players than us in the time at the moment, and there were some brilliant models within the UK market that were really establishing the idea that employed isn't the only way, and starting your own bricks and mortar business is not the only way. And there is something in between that can empower an agent to go on their own and great independence and take the lion's share of the commission, and yet have the support of an organisation and a team and a network around them that is entwined with what they're doing and what they're looking to deliver.
It's funny that Purple Bricks get a bashing for what they did, and there's lots of rights and wrongs of it, but I think for me what they've done is they've made it socially acceptable to sell a house through an agent that hasn't got bricks and mortar premises.
Yeah, and I think probably COVID had a big part to play in that as well, you know, because COVID changed even further the dynamic of the high street that we were experiencing ourselves. So we actually made our move from our 3-branch estate agency that we'd built into a centralised central head office at the beginning of 2020, before COVID was even a notable thing in our area. And almost thank God that we did, because 3 months later we had to close it. And actually closing 3 high street offices. Look back, a genius decision, but it wasn't like nobody knew COVID was coming. So it was just the way that we saw the market going, and the way that we were keeping these high street offices open for the time that it said on the door, on the 7 days a week, and we were almost staffing a receptionist, but we weren't staffing
staff retention on that. If I look back at my own experience of working in the Connells Group, working as a sort of like a divisional, etc., what you tend to find is actually there are a lot of people that depart the business that will say it was that inflexibility, those fixed hours, shackled to my desk. And you can see actually why that kind of lures people away from traditional type of high street agency.
And I think, now you're seeing that, and I think the customers have realised that in the way in which they interact with us as agents. The rise of digital, the rise of that constant communication rather than these fixed hour communications. And I think we're seeing how successful some of the self-employed agents in the market are being. The adoption of the model has been far greater, although it's nowhere near where it could be. I feel that we're entering phase 2 right now, and I think it's an established model that is out of the bag. It's not going back in. And now it's about great models delivering great service for agents and giving good agents a home to build their business and a partnership to work with.
Yeah, very much so. I think you've hit the nail on the head there.
I think in terms of adoption, I suppose, in terms of that, we're probably 1,500 people now, 2% of the market.
So how big do you see that getting in maybe, I don't know, let's fast forward 3 to 5 years. Well, what's your sort of personal take on where that may be?
So I think in 5 years' time, we'll be somewhere between 25% and 30% of the market. More in line with some of the European countries that are also running the model quite successfully. And I think the increase in the ability to be an agent.
We're quite latecomers to the party on that, aren't we?
We really are.
Why do you think that is?
I actually think the UK is quite different in terms of how it's been run and operated. I think the corporate organisations within the UK have been very successful and therefore have been able to close out a lot of the challenger type of brands and the challenger sort of models that are there and that have been adopted. So, I think it's somewhere around there as to why it hasn't quite worked.
What about culture? Because I guess, Britons have long had a reputation for being the island of small business owners. Yeah. And it just surprises me that maybe we haven't got to higher numbers already.
I suppose.
What do you think's held that back?
Well, I don't think that we're not the island of small business owners. As the reality was, I was a small business owner.
True.
But the route that I took and the debt that me and my business partner took on to create that business is not necessarily what you have to do now to create your own business. So I think we are still going down the small business owner route. There is just a different way of doing it.
What do you think it takes for the investment? If someone's going to start up a bricks and mortar traditional model, what sort of money, from your experiences, have they got to sink into it in year one and be prepared to say goodbye to?
£200,000.
Jeez.
I'd say so.
So you've got to have 200k sitting spare that you're prepared to say goodbye to.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a lot of dough.
It is a lot of dough. And I think on that note, we'll leave that one there as an open-ender. Thanks, Jace.